Hi students, today we will learn about the third and final form of a linear equation called point-slope form. Okay, so we already know how to write a linear function in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, when we know the m, the slope, and the b, the y-intercept. Remember, we just replace the m and the b with those two numbers. Boom, we're done. But sometimes you want to write the equation of a line when you don't know those things, okay? You don't know the slope and the y-intercept. So what you do have to always have, though, is you have to have a point on the line and you have to have the slope of the line. So by a point on the line, I'm not talking about the y-intercept. It could actually be any of the millions of points that make up a line, any one of them, and the slope. So this is how you do it. We're going to use something called point-slope form. Okay, and this is what it looks like. Okay, it looks a little crazy. All you need is the m, the y-intercept. You put that there. Let me do it like this. You put the m there. And then whatever point you have, you put the x-coordinate here and the y-coordinate here, okay? This y and this x stay in your equation. So you're just replacing those three circled items, okay? Once you have it in that form, you can leave it in that form if that's, what's being asked, or you can distribute the m and move that y1 term to the other side and combine like terms to put it back into slope-intercept form. Okay, so that's what we're going to be practicing today. It's going to feel a little strange at first, but I promise with enough practice, you will get good at it. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. For these, we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Now, we can't start there. We're going to end there. If you look at what's given for each of these, we're given the slope and a point. So when you have those two things, you're going to use point-slope form, which looks like this. Write it down if you haven't yet. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And the parts that we are replacing, let me get a bright color so you could see, are the y1 and x1. Those are the x and y coordinates of the point. And then the m, that's the slope. So let's go ahead and do that. The slope is 1, that's my m. The 2, 5, my point, that's my x1 and my y1. Okay, so those are the numbers I'm going to replace. So for m, I'm going to put 1. For x1, I'm going to put 2. For y1, I'm going to put 5. And then I'm going to just rewrite the rest of the equation. So it's going to be like this. Y minus that 5 equals 1 times parentheses x minus that 2. So I want you to notice the three things that we replaced, the m, the x1, and the y1. Okay, so if it says to write this in point-slope form, this would be your answer. You could leave it just like that. But we're going to actually convert it into slope-intercept form. So just to remind you, that's y equals mx plus b. We want to make it look like that. Oops, sorry about that. Which means we want to get the y by itself on that left side. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to have to do is distribute to get rid of our parentheses. So we're going to distribute that 1 to the x and to the minus 2. So we'll have y minus 5 on the left equals 1 times x is just 1x or x. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. So what's in the parentheses actually didn't change because we were multiplying by 1, and multiplying by 1 doesn't change the value. But now our parentheses are gone. The next thing we're going to do is move that minus 5 to the other side so that we only have y on the left. And we're going to do that by the opposite of minus 5, which is plus 5. We're going to add that to both sides. Oop, I should probably have my line right. These cancel, so we've got y by itself on the left equals, on the right, we can combine that minus 2 with that positive 5 to make a positive 3. So we've got x plus 3 Boom, this is in slope-intercept form. Now in this form, I can see my slope is 1. It's invisible, but we can add it. That's my m. And then my 3, that's my b. Okay? Notice, I could see my slope in point slope form, right? But I couldn't see the b. So the b can only be seen in this form right here, in slope-intercept form. All right, let's go ahead and try that again. So with number 2, our slope is negative 2/3. Our point is 3, negative 6. So 3 is my x1, negative 6 is my y1. So we're going to go ahead and replace these into our equation. So let's write our equation again. The more you write it, the more it'll kind of stick in your head. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, we are replacing the y1, the m, and the x1. So let's go ahead and see what that's going to look like. So we'll have y minus, my y1 is negative 6. So I need to put that in parentheses. Anytime you have a negative, always put it in parentheses. Equals, my m is negative 2/3. Parentheses x minus my x1 is that 3. Okay, so just to recap, we replaced y1 with negative 6, m with negative 2/3, and x1 with, x1 with 3. All right, so if I wanted to keep my equation in slope-intercept form, not slope-intercept, point-slope form, this would be acceptable, right? So if that was an answer choice, you could leave it. But if you needed it in slope-intercept form, you would need to distribute that m and then move that y1 to the opposite side. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start by distributing that negative 2/3 inside of our parentheses. On the left side, when I bring down y minus negative 6, I can remember that minus a negative is the same as plus. So this would be the same as y plus 6. So I'm just kind of cleaning up that side. Over here, negative 2/3 times x is negative 2/3 x. Negative 2/3 times negative 3. All right, so you're going to be multiplying a lot of fractions with this concept. Remember how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. You need to put that whole number over 1. Okay, and then you're going to multiply your numerators. First of all, a negative times a negative is a positive. Let's multiply our numerators and then we'll multiply our denominators. Our numerators, 2 times 3 is 6. For our denominators, 3 times 1 is 3. And that can simplify to 2, 6 divided by 3, so you could rewrite that as a 2. Okay? Next step is move that plus 6 to the other side by doing the opposite. So we're going to subtract 6 on both sides. That goes away, so we've got y equals on the left. We've got negative 2/3 x, and then we can combine that 2 and that minus 6 to make minus 4. So here's my equation in slope-intercept form. Notice I can still see my slope is negative 2/3. That's what it was at the beginning. But now I can see my y-intercept, my b, of negative 4. So let's keep going. Sometimes the question might be asked in a little bit different. So this time, again, we have our slope. It's 9/5. But this time it tells us the x-intercept is negative 6. Well, I need that as a point. So remember x-intercept. X-intercept is where the y value equals 0. The x value is that negative 6. So sometimes you might have to rewrite something as a point. That's my x1 and my y1. So let's go ahead and write our equation. It's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, we're replacing y1 and x1 with the 0 and negative 6, and we're replacing the m with the 9/5. So let's see what it looks like when we do that. So we'll get y minus, my y1 is 0, equals, my m is 9/5. Parentheses, x minus, my x1 is negative 6. All right, So I see a couple things I can do to clean up my equation. Whenever you see that, kind of do it. So over here on the left, I've got minus 0. Well, minus 0 just doesn't mean anything, right? So that can go away. So I've got just y on the left side. Cool. On the right side, I see that minus negative 6. That's the same as adding a positive. So I can rewrite that as x plus 6. We're also going to distribute that 9/5. So we can do that in this step as well. So 9/5 times x is 9/5 x. 9/5 times 6, I need to put the 6 over 1 and multiply the numerators together. A positive times a positive is going to be a positive, first of all. 9 times 6, my numerators, is 54. For my denominators, 5 times 1 is 5. And that fraction does not simplify. So we're done. We only had to do one step here. My slope, still, you can see it is 9/5. That's my m. And now I can see my b is 54/5. If I had to graph that, I would probably want to convert that to a decimal so that I kind of know where that number is. All right, let's try number 4. This time our slope is -3. And now it tells us the x-intercept is -3. So again, I want to write that as an ordered pair. Remember, with x-intercepts, the y value is 0. So the x value is going to be -3. So that's my x1 and my y1. Let's go ahead and write it in our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We're replacing the m, the x1, and the y1. So it'll be like this. Y minus, my y1 again is 0, equals my m now is -3, parentheses x minus, my x1 is -3. So just like last time, we can kind of clean it up. -0, this part goes away, so we just have y on the left. On the right, I have that minus negative, which remember is the same as adding a positive. So let's distribute that -3 to the x and to the +3. -3 times x is -3x. -3 times 3 is -9. And it's in slope-intercept form. So on this one, again, I only had to do one step, really. I can see that my m, my slope, is still -3. And now I can see my y-intercept is -9. All right, let's try this one. This time the slope is 0, so it's a flat, it's a horizontal line. Remember that. The point is -3, -5, so that's my x1 and my y1. Let's go ahead and write our point slope form and plug it in. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Hopefully you're starting to kind of memorize this formula because we're writing it so much. Remember, we're going to place the m, the x1, and the y1. We're going to leave the other y and x where they are. So we've got y minus, my y1 is -5, put it in parentheses, equals, my m is 0. Parentheses, x minus, my x1 is -3. All right, let's see if we can clean up this a little bit. On the left, I've got y minus a -5. That's the same as adding a positive. So that's like y plus 5 equals, and then what happens, I'm distributing a 0. Basically, I'm multiplying that whole set of parentheses by 0, and whenever I multiply something by 0, it goes away. So this whole side goes away, so we just have 0. So this is one of those special cases. Remember, it's going to be a horizontal line, right? So that's when our equations look a little different. Let's go ahead and keep solving for y. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides so that just y is on the left. And we get y equals -5. So remember, for a horizontal line, the equation is always y equals that y value. Every point on that line has a y value of -5. All right, we've got a few more. Again, we want to write this in slope-intercept form, so we first have to use point slope form because we don't have the slope and y-intercept. But this time, we also aren't given the slope. So we are given 2 points. So the very first thing we're going to have to do is to find the slope. So we're going to use our x and our y. Remember the slope formula. it's y2 minus y1, excuse me, over x2 minus x1. So we're practicing a skill that we already have. Let's go ahead and do this. So our two y values are -3 and -6. I can subtract them in any order. That's up to you. I'm going to do the -6 minus the -3. So I need to subtract in the same order with my x's. So I'm going to do 3 minus 4. So I'm subtracting right minus left. Let's go ahead and simplify that. Up top, I'm subtracting a negative. That's the same as adding a positive. So -6 plus 3 equals -3. In the denominator, 3 minus 4 is -1. And remember, if I have a negative in the top and in the bottom of my fraction is positive. I'm just going to write it as 3. So there's my m. Now for the point, I actually have a choice. I can choose the 4, -3 or the 3, -6. Either one you choose, your equation is going to look different in point slope form, but when you convert it to slope intercept form, it will look the same. So let's just choose, I'm going to choose the one on the left. So I'm going to use this x1 and this y1, the 4 and the -3. All right, so let's go ahead and do what we did a minute ago. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, we're just replacing the m, the x1, and the y1. This time we're using the m that we just found, which is 3. So let's replace this. Y minus, the y1 I'm using is -3, equals the m that I just found is 3, parentheses, x minus the x1 from the point that I'm choosing is 4. Okay, now if I had chosen the other point, this part and this part of my equation would just be 3 and -6, and it would look different right now, and that's okay. It's still going to represent the same line. Let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So on the left, minus a negative, that's the same as adding a positive. So on the left, I've got y plus 3. On the right, I just need to distribute that 3. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times -4 is -12. Second step, we're going to move that plus 3 to the other side by subtracting it from both sides. So y equals 3x. That minus 3 can combine with the minus 12 to make minus 15. So there's our equation in slope-intercept form. Notice I can still see that slope that I just found of 3, but now I can see the y-intercept of -15. All right, let's do number 7. So again, we have 2 points. So whenever you just have 2 points, you need to find the slope first using the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, our two y values are -5 and 7. I'm going to do 7 minus the -5. So I'm going to subtract in the same direction on the bottom. 5 minus a -5 for my x's. Both of those minus negatives I can change to plus a positive. 7 plus 5 is 12 on the top, 5 plus 5 is 10 on the bottom, and 12 over 10 simplifies to 6/5. So there is my slope. Again, I get to choose which point I want to use in my point slope formula. I'm going to choose the positive ones because I think those are always easier to work with. So the 5 and the 7 will be my x1 and y1. So let's go ahead and write our equation. Actually, I can just kind of look at it because it's up top. So I'm just going to replace those yellow areas just to save me some room. Y minus, for y1, we're going to use the 7 equals the m we just found is 6/5. Parentheses x minus the x1 we're going to use is the 5. All right, I don't have any minus negatives to clean up, so let's just go ahead and start by distributing that 6/5. So I've got y minus 7 on the left equals 6/5 times x is 6/5 x. 6/5 times -5, put the -5 over 1, and we'll multiply straight across. Positive times a negative is a negative. Let's do our numerators. 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5. And 30 over 5 is the same as 6. So I can just rewrite that as a 6. All right, the last step is move that -7 to the right. So I just have y on the left. We're going to do that by adding 7 to both sides. So y equals 6/5 x. And then I'm going to combine this -6 and this +7, which is going to give me a +1. So here's my equation in slope-intercept form. I can see my slope is 6/5, just like it was on the over here. But now I can see my y-intercept is now b. Now remember, if instead of 5 and 7 for my x1 and y1, if I had used -5 and -5, my equation here would look different, but down here it would look the same. So go ahead and try it if you don't believe me. If you're getting something different, then maybe there's a problem with your negative or your multiplying, so I can help you there. Here's a problem. I want you to go ahead and try this. Again, you're going to find the slope first and then choose one of your points, plug it in, and then distribute the m, move your y over to put it in slope-intercept form. So I want you to pause it, try it, and then unpause it and see what you get. Pause now. Okay, either way you did it, you should have gotten y equals 1/2 x plus 6. So I did it two different ways. First of all, your slope should be 1/2, so check to make sure. Over here, when you choose your x1 and y1, you could choose either point. So this point I did on the top. I replaced with 4 and 8 for my x1 and y1. On the bottom, I used the first point, so I replaced, the x1 with -2 and the y1 with 5. I want you to see, though, that both gave the same equation in slope-intercept form. Now, in point-slope form, though, notice they look very different. So you can have a lot of point-slope forms that look different but represent the same line. Got one more. All right, in this last one, the y-intercept is -3 and the x-intercept is 7. So we need to write those as ordered pairs. Remember, the y-intercept is where x equals 0, so that's going to be 0, -3. The x-intercept is where y equals 0, so that's going to be 7, 0. So let's go ahead and use those two points to first find the slope. If you would like to pause and do this on your own, you totally can. All right, so for my y values, I've got -3 and 0. I'm going to do 0 minus -3. And for my x values, I need to subtract in the same direction, so 7 minus 0. The minus -3 is the same as plus +3. So that's going to be 3 in the top, and 7 minus 0 is 7 in the bottom. So that means my slope is +3/7. Remember, I can choose either point for my x1 and y1. I'm going to choose the point on the right, the 7, 0, for my x1 and y1. Okay? So let's go ahead and write our equation. You're probably getting pretty good at this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So remember, we're replacing the m, the x1, and the y1 with 3/7, 7, and 0. Let's do it. So y minus my y1 is 0 equals my m is 3/7, parentheses x minus my x1 is 7. That minus 0, remember, that's like nothing, so the y is gone. Sorry, we just have y on the left is what I meant to say. On the right, we need to distribute that 3/7. 3/7 times x is 3/7 x. 3/7 times -7, put that -7 over 1. Positive times negative is negative. Let's multiply our numerators. 3 times 7 is 21. Our denominator, 7 times 1 is 7. And 21 over 7 reduces to 3, so I'll just rewrite it. Y equals 3/7 x minus 3. So there's my slope-intercept form. Now, had I chosen to use the 0, -3 for my x1 and y1, I would still get this same equation in slope-intercept form. All right, bring me your questions to class on Monday or Tuesday, and I'll help you. If you feel like you have a good foundation and want to start on the assignment, go ahead. See you next week.